The standard historical record gives us a strict timeline. For thousands of years before Columbus crossed the Atlantic, North America supposedly existed in total isolation. Civilizations from Egypt or Mesopotamia never reached these shores, and the ocean served as an impassable barrier to progress. On April 5, 1909, the Arizona Gazette printed a front-page story that directly contradicted that entire historical consensus. The report detailed the discovery of a massive, hand-carved stone labyrinth buried deep inside the Grand Canyon. According to the text, the tunnels stretched for miles, eventually opening into chambers filled with gold, weapons, and rows of ancient mummies. Then, without explanation, the artifacts vanished, and the archaeologists leading the dig disappeared from public records. An archaeological site capable of holding thousands of people does not simply misplace itself. When an entire excavation is wiped from the historical register, we have to look closely at whether the history we are taught is an objective truth or a carefully curated narrative. In the fall of 1908, a seasoned explorer named G.E. Kincaid was rafting the sweeping currents of the Colorado River. His mission was to search the canyon's remote crevices for mineral deposits. Looking up from the water, 2,000 feet above the river, Kincaid spotted something unnatural. Hidden behind brush on the sheer eastern wall was a distinctly rectangular cave entrance. Driven by curiosity, he scaled the near-vertical rock face. What he found inside was a perfectly straight corridor carved directly out of solid rock. He lit his lantern and walked nearly 100 feet into the earth. The corridor opened into a sprawling network of intersecting tunnels. Kincaid noted in his journal that the layout resembled a giant wheel, radiating outward from a massive central hub, with enough vast stone halls to comfortably house 50,000 people. Natural water erosion creates jagged, winding caverns. Perfect symmetry, load-bearing architecture, and straight stone walls point to a deliberate, massive engineering project constructed by human hands. The architecture was anomalous, but the specific items Kincaid found inside the chambers posed an even bigger problem. First were the weapons. Inside the halls lay piles of swords, shields, and tools, forged from hardened copper and bronze. The native tribes of the American Southwest during that era utilized stone and bone. They lacked the advanced metallurgical technologies to forge these metals. Second, the walls of the main cavern were heavily etched with pictorial symbols. Kincaid recorded that the precise, repeating figures looked remarkably similar to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. And finally, deep within the complex, he found an immense burial vault. Rows of male figures, wrapped in dark linen, lay perfectly preserved alongside clay urns and copper cups featuring an oriental design. Finding Egyptian metallurgy, linguistics, and burial customs in a single North American site suggests that the oceans were never the barrier we once thought. If these artifacts were real, they place Old World culture in the American West long before the arrival of the first Europeans. Realizing the immense scale of the site, Kincaid gathered a few portable artifacts, climbed back down the cliffside, and immediately sent a telegram to Washington, D.C. The institutional response was swift. The Smithsonian dispatched a highly respected archaeologist, Professor S.A. Jordan, who arrived with a crew of over 30 men to excavate the tunnels and ship crates of relics back east. But then, the trail went entirely cold. No follow-up articles were published, and no scholarly papers were written. If you contact the Smithsonian today asking to see the Grand Canyon mummies, their official response is they have absolutely no record of a G.E. Kincaid, no Professor S.A. Jordan, and no Egyptian cave. A permanent Egyptian presence in the Grand Canyon forces scholars to scrap decades of research. If these men never existed, the original article was a fabrication. But if they did, their work was systematically removed from the archive to keep the standard history intact. With the physical artifacts missing, we have to cross-examine the official denial against outside sources. The most compelling corroboration comes from the people who have lived near the canyon for centuries. The Hopi tribe maintains deeply rooted oral traditions detailing their origins. According to their legends, their ancestors survived a cataclysm by taking refuge in a vast underground world, eventually emerging through a sacred opening in the Grand Canyon. The physical rock art in the surrounding region depicts non-human figures the Hopi refer to as the Ant People, who allegedly guided them out of this labyrinthine underworld. Today, the geographical area containing the suspected cave entrance is fiercely guarded. Often referred to as a forbidden zone, the federal government strictly prohibits hikers, campers, and low-flying drones from entering the airspace, enforcing massive fines and arrests for trespassers. This aggressive militarization of the landscape began months before the Arizona Gazette article went to print, when President Theodore Roosevelt invoked the Antiquities Act of 1906 to heavily restrict land use in that exact portion of the canyon. We have missing relics and redacted files, but when you overlay matching indigenous lore with heavy federal restriction of the exact geographic coordinates, it points to a physical reality hiding behind the administrative silence. We are left to choose between two logical extremes. The first is that during an era of sensational journalism, a local newspaper fabricated an incredibly detailed, massive structural anomaly, inventing archaeologists and expeditions entirely out of thin air to sell copies. The second is that a team of explorers stumbled onto physical proof of advanced pre-Columbian contact. The scientific establishment locked the evidence away, rather than dismantle their foundational theories of human progress. Whether the Grand Canyon Citadel is a localized myth or a globally suppressed reality, it reminds us to rigorously question the authorities who curate our textbooks. We have to maintain an intense curiosity about the blank spaces left on the map, because the truth often hides in the shadows of the canyon walls.